We're live on Wednesday, January 21st, here in the afternoon in House Transportation. We have a multi-return guest for Rail Director for the Agency of Transportation. We are in our budget presentations. Dan DeLabrie is going to go over the rail budget, and that is, as I think I mentioned earlier, we're on sort of day one of budget presentations, and you are in the hot seat for your $60 million.
Great, great. Thank you. Again, Dan DeLabrie, Rail Bureau Director for VTrans. So just before what I was going to do is refer you to tab number 12 in your white book. And I will quickly run down through each one of those projects kind of one by one. And I'll go fairly quickly because there's a fair number of them. But I first wanted to talk about just sort of how the rail program is funded. So as the chair referred to a few moments ago, we apply for a lot of discretionary grants in the rail section. The Federal Rail Administration is different than the Federal Highway Administration in the way that we do not get an allocated amount of formula funds every year for railroads. We have to apply for, and they're all competitive across the country. And some years we get them and some years we don't. A little over a year ago, we applied for a CRISI grant for some continuously welded rail on the Western Corridor, south of Rutland. We did not get that grant. We were not successful. We are planning on applying for that same grant again. It's in this budget, and I'll get there in a moment, but that's just one example of how we get our funding. There is some federal highway funds that are eligible for railroad projects. The projects that are railroad crossings, and for safety. And then there's a small bucket of money in the federal highway program that allocates money towards anything freight related. So we call those freight funds. So other than the competitive FRA funds, the freight federal highway funds, and the crossing safety federal highway funds, the only other available option for regular projects would be state funds. So that's how all these projects are funded. Now, also in my budget, there's some FEMA projects. So those are most, depending on the severity of the storm, determines the percentage of FEMA versus state funds. So in a nutshell, that's how these projects are all funded. So before I jump in, any questions about the overall?
Yeah, just on the railroad crossing safety.
Yes.
Funds from
Those are, highways. Yeah.
Highway.
Yeah, federal highway.
Federal Highway, FHW. Is that part of a formula fund, though, that money that
Yes.
can be used for it, or are they grants?
No, so each state gets a very small, state of Vermont gets $1.2 million annually.
In that bucket?
It comes through the federal highway division to us and we manage those funds in the rail division.
Okay, and you use those for crossings?
Yes, and we have to,
Probably not enough for all the crossings you're trying to upgrade.
now, to give you an example, if you took a crossing that didn't have any lights, it was just crossbucks, and you converted it over to lights and lights and gates, that's already that's over $1 million project alone. So if that's all we did, we could technically do about one of those a year.
Okay,
But we have some of those, and then we have some of those where it's already got lights. We might just add gates to it, or we might do an upgrade of lights to new lights or something, So it's not always just nothing to everything. So it depends on our priority and safety.
yeah, and right now, how do you decide when and how to do those? Are we measured against those? Are there a number of them that don't meet the standards now and you're trying to catch up? I mean, just where are we?
Yes. So the answer is yes, we're always trying to catch up because the number of crossings in the state Okay, let me give you an example. So when we brought Amtrak Rutland to Burlington, we went through as a project and upgraded a whole bunch, and we knocked a whole bunch off our list then. But that's the last time we've sort of done sort of a corridor project. So the rest of the state, we have to do only as much we have for funds per year. And what we do is there's 422 public crossings in the state. We inspect those every year. Every single year we do an inspection. Every single year it gets a score based on what either condition or if traffic patterns. So let me give you an example. If this crossing was not on a bus route, for example, and all of a sudden the buses started going there, we have to add the bus criteria to that crossing, which could lower the score if it doesn't have lights and gates, right? So there's all these factors that give it a score. If you drive up to a crossing and all the trees on the right-hand side have now grown up and you can't see anything, that sight distance gets a score. That's part of the formula. If train speeds increase, like if it went from 30 to 59, that changes the score. So there's all these different things that factor into the score. And that's why we have to evaluate it every single year. Is there hazmats that go across it? Like there's now did some company open up a new factory on the other side that's running trucks that have hazmat across it, right? That matters when you're talking about safety score. So all of these things add up to score. So anyway, we reevaluate and reprioritize every year, 422 crossings, and we take our top one. We literally try to get the top 10 every year into some sort of a project.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go quickly and I'm gonna run down, oh, there's one other type of funding I did not mention, and that is congestion mitigation funds, which are the CMAQ funds. And that we use a percentage of CMAQ funds to fund our Amtrak service. So we do get some federal funds for CMAQ funding. So, all right. So the first two, I'm just going to go quickly and I'll start at the top. The first two are the same project. This is Amtrak funding. And we had to do it a little different this year. We split one into two projects, and that is based on, it's the same thing. It's paying for our Amtrak Ethan Allen and our Amtrak Vermonter, but we had to split it because our state fiscal year and our federal fiscal year don't line up. So we have to split it into two projects based on federal and state fiscal. So it's $9.5 million to pay for Amtrak's Ethan Allen and Vermonter. And just as a side, our ridership is doing well. I think we're up 4% on one train and 3% on the other. So we're doing okay. The third project down is Amtrak station improvements. This is a federal grant that we got, and it's not a big grant, but it's things like we're adding blue lights to all the stations for safety. We're adding Wi-Fi. We're adding consistent signage. This was in our budget last year. It's going to go to construction this year. So you guys have heard about this project once already. It's the same project. It's just now going to go to construction this coming year. I could. Yep, I'm sorry. Okay.
Do you know which stations that'll be?
It's so we're doing well, with the exception of I can tell you which ones are not. So Brattleboro, we're not doing anything there because that's going to be a brand new station. And Middlebury, we're not doing. Burlington. Oh, are we doing anything in Burlington? Are we doing? Was it the sign or something? There was something there. Essex, we're not doing because there's a project there.
Okay. So it's intended to be kind of across the board.
It's every station that we're trying to make them consistent.
Yeah, I see.
And some have some stuff and some don't. So we're trying to make them all so that if you go to one Amtrak station, you go to the other, they all have the same features.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Quickly, there's a few projects in Barnett. They're bridge projects. So the first one is so we also do prioritization on all our bridge structures. Okay, so we try to get at least our top 10 worst bridges into our budget every year. This first one, Bridge 527, that's our number 6 bridge, worst bridge. So that's why that's on there. And then the next one is actually not in our top 10. It's number 19, but it's the very similar bridge to the number 6. And there's some efficiencies when you bundle projects together. So it just makes sense to do these two together. So they're being designed and bid together. The next one in Barnett is new this year, or actually it was new last year. It's in design. So that's not going to go to construction. That's just that's the next one in our queue to go to construction. Then we go to Berry City for a couple of FEMA projects. Those are one's a slope and one's a culvert repair. This is back in 20, is that the 23 storm? Yeah, that's 23. So basically all the FEMA projects that are in here were longer duration projects that needed a lot more design. They weren't just quick fixes, they were designs, permitting, and all that stuff. So Berry City, there's a crossing on Hill Street. That is our number 3 crossing. And that's actually, we are actually adding active warning system for that one. Bridge 308 in Berry, this is a unique one. Just to make you guys aware of what this one is. This was a bridge that went to a granite distributor, and it's not on the main line. We own it, but it's on us. The track actually goes to only a couple of businesses over there, and it got hit by some flooding several times. So while we figure out kind of what to do and the best thing to do, we've actually removed that. Bridge is gone. But we call it our number 1 bridge because there's no bridge there. And it's our worst bridge.
Bridge too far, huh?
That's an interesting way to write it.
Yeah, that's our worst bridge because there is no bridge. So we're trying to figure out sort of the most cost-effective, either the scenario that makes the most sense. We're still working on. But there is some design money in this budget to kind of work through alternatives and things like that. So that's what that is. We have another Berry City crossing on Quarry Hill, and that's our number 5. And that one is actually under contract and ready to go. So we'll see construction start on that as soon as Mother Nature lets us do that. Then we move up to Barton. That's a brand new project for this budget, new to 27 budget, starting design, Bridge 558. It's a replacement of the substructure there, so some wing walls and things. And we may or may not replace the superstructure. It's a wooden trestle, and we're trying to figure out the best use to do there. But and then we go to Burlington Intervale. This was in last year's budget too. This is a crossing on Intervale Road. If you've ever been down to Intervale Road, this one's taking a little longer because we're actually working with the city of Burlington. They wanted to add, so ours is the crossing project, but they want to add some sidewalks and some other stuff and we said, well, we might as well do it all together. So we're working with them. We're not in full control of the schedule because we've got kind of 2 projects paralleling each other. We'll build it at the same time. But it was in last year's budget. It's slowed down a little bit, taking us a little longer, but it'll be done. It'll go this year for sure. Lake Street is a new project this year. It's down on the waterfront towards the skate park, if you ever want to know where that is. We're starting design on that. Cavendish, we've got a few projects there. We've got Bridge 132, which is our number 9 bridge, and that's pier replacement, and that one's actually under contract as well, ready to go this construction season. Then we got a couple of crossings in Cavendish there's the railroad and the road. We intersect twice on Cavendish Gulf Road, and those will be bid together. Not huge upgrades to those crossings, but we've got to increase the safety by getting some sight distance, getting a little better approach to it. So those will both go together. Chester Bridge 119, this has been in our budget a couple of times, and then when the storm hit in 23, we kind of had to start our design a little bit different because the flood took out some more of the bridge that didn't need to be fixed. So anyway, we ended up doing a little redesign, and we're gonna do a FEMA section. So that's why this shows twice. One is the FEMA portion, one is the portion that we were gonna design originally. So it shows Bridge 119 in here 2 times, and that's because one is FEMA and one is regular programmed project. Staying in Chester, Bridge 123, that's a FEMA project, and the next 3 projects are also FEMA storm damage, bridge repairs of just abutments or around the bridge abutments and things like that. So, and then we move to Coventry, Bridge 563. This is another wooden trestle that it's actually our number 2 bridge. It's not a very big bridge. It's like 16 feet long and it's wood, and it's our number 2 bridge just because it keeps moving, but it's time to fix it. We gotta do something.
Jump from number 1 to number 2 is non-existent to tipping. What's the
Yeah.
number 3 bridge bad problem?
So the number 2 is you can put some Band-Aids on these things and make them so they're all right, but at some point you just gotta fix it, right? So it's time to move that one to a project, which we did it was in it's in the current budget year, but it'll go to construction in 27.
Not sure if we're gonna be able to get through the whole list, and we have to pick on some of the more highlighted ones.
All right, I can do that. I can highlight it here. All right, couple of grants that I want to talk about. So we're talking about grants and applications. So if you go to the Coventry WCRL BR grant, so I'm just gonna highlight those. So that's a bridge grant that we are working on, and we will want to apply sometime in the future. So a little bit about railroads is your corridor is only as good as your weakest link, right? So if you want 286,000 pounds to go from one end to the other, and one bridge doesn't hold it, your whole corridor is useless, right? So this is a corridor project from White River Junction to Newport to look at all the bridges that cannot hold 286,000 pounds. And that'll be an application in the future. How you apply and be competitive for these federal grants is you have to be 30% designed so that FRA looks at it and says, you guys have done enough homework on this that you will spend the money, and if I give it to you, I know the project will get done. If you have nothing done, 0, you won't get your grant because you're not competitive, and in their eyes, they think you don't even know what you don't know yet, right? We're not going to give you money to go figure out what you don't know. Well, we know at 30% design, we know what we got to do. So that's what that is.
And we've heard about that in the rail plan.
Yes.
Up and down, up the right side of the whole east side of the state to get to that level, long-term rail plan. That's pretty high on the priority list for the long term.
Right.
Gotcha.
So there's that one that's in Coventry, and we have the identical one down below, and I'll get there in a second, but down in Rockingham, we're doing another corridor study for Rutland to Rockingham. Couple of other grant opportunities. If you look at Green Mountain Corridor ID program, and then there's another one for the Vermonter down a little further, Vermonter Corridor ID program. So what that is that's Amtrak corridors, and this is phase 2. Phase 1 was what's your corridor. Phase 2 is give us an inventory and everything that you think, kind of build your future grant applications essentially. And then phase 3 is start submitting projects. We're on phase 2. And so the Ethan Allen has this and the Vermonter has this. We're not ready to go to construction. We have no projects we're not asking for any federal money projects yet. We're going to get there. But Vermont's not alone. All the states, we're all at the same spot right now across the country. We're all in phase 2, all the states. So we're where we should be, but probably 2 years from now, I'm going to be sitting in this chair, hopefully. And, and I might be saying, we're not, and now we'll, I need money for construction. So we'll talk about those through the grant process. All right, another couple of highlights. Okay, I wanted to talk about if we go back up to the Hooksett to Bennington one, that was the grant we applied for and didn't get a year ago. We've got it in this budget as if we're going to apply for it and get it in 27. And the reason why we have to put it in here is there is a state match to the federal dollars. And so that's what that is. So we're budgeting the match for a grant that we don't officially know we have right now. So that's what that is. So we're forecasting a grant that we're going to receive. And unfortunately, that's what I have to do is plan ahead for these grants. Otherwise, I would have to cut my budget somewhere else to match the grant that I get. So this is how we do it. That makes sense.
Representative Pouch has a
And
question for
can
you.
you just describe what it is? It says.
Oh, yes.
Track grant, what's it for?
Okay, so that section from Rutland to Hoosick, New York, if you remember the last 4 years, I've been working on bridges, upgrading all the bridges through there. So all those bridges are 286,000 pounds. Okay, step one. Step two, now we have to upgrade the actual rail that's on the ground because some of it is, I'm not exaggerating, 75 years old and it's wearing out. So we have to replace, there is, if you count it all up, it's 60 miles of actual steel rail that needs to be replaced to get it to new standards. So that's what that is. It's 60 miles of rail replacement with what's called continuously welded rail.
So the ties or.
Some ties,
Yeah,
there'll be ties in that program, there'll be ballast in that program. When you replace rail, you typically, make the bed correct and make it drain and make sure all that. There's some crossings that will get affected as you put new rail in. So there'll be some crossings in there. All right. How much time do I have? 5 minutes? 10? Okay. I'm trying to figure out what highlights you want, how many I can get to.
Wow.
That's good. We're good. We're doing
You're good.
we're doing good. The other project that one of the things I want to point out is Rockingham and Bells Falls Station. We are redoing that platform. This was also in this current year's budget, but we're hopefully going to go to construction on that. That is a very complicated project because we have the platform. We have a crossing right next to it. Bellows Falls Town has bought the station. They have a station project going on that's going to affect the platform itself because they have to do some foundation work. And then the railroad itself, New England Central, has a track project just barely north of the station. So there's 4 projects that we're coordinating at the same time so that if I put the platform in, the town doesn't dig up my platform to fix their foundation. And if I put the track next to the platform, the railroad doesn't take my track out to fix theirs. And then at the end of the platform, I don't dig up the crossing that they just, you know what I mean? It's like, it's all these 4 projects that go together. Been fun, but getting a lot of people to work together in the exact sequence is sometimes, a lot of work. So that's what that is. But I wanted to point that out, that platform currently doesn't quite meet ADA compliant. It's not 8 inches. It's not consistently 8 inches above top of rail, which is what ADA compliance is. So that's one of the reasons why I fixed that. Okay. One of the things that we do again have, and I like to point this one out every year because some people tend to have questions on it. At the very end, when we get into statewide line items, there's a few things. Immediate attention bridge. So we have 174 bridges that we inspect every single year. And we haven't missed a year where we found something that we've got to do, right? So we get out there, some surprise happened, either, high water in the spring or ice or something, hits an abutment, one of the stones on the, these things are built 125, 30 years ago, built with laid up stone for foundations. Something moves or, a bolt or something doesn't, breaks or something. So we always have what we call immediate attention bridges every single year where we have to respond to our inspections. I want to make sure we have that in the budget. We will deal with it as it comes. But that is something that we do every year. And then the other thing on bridges, if you go down to statewides, there's the inspection line item, that's the cost that we do to actually inspect them, because we have a snooper truck, if you've never seen it. We have a high rail pickup truck. I mean, there's costs and expenses to go along with inspecting these bridges. And then the other thing we're required to do by FRA standards is report every year. After we inspect them, we have to send a report to the FRA saying, this is the condition, this is the load rating of every one of our bridges. We have to do that every year. If we want to continue to be in compliance with the FRA, and we will. So we have to do that. So that's bridge load rating, if you look at that line item. Another example of a grant is the Tri-State Regional Grant. Now, this is not on a railroad that we own. This is a private railroad that applied for funding. And I wanted to point this one out that's unique is this is a grant that covers the St. Lawrence and Atlantic and the Northeast Kingdom. And then it goes through New Hampshire, and then it goes through Maine. So there's 3 states that are part of this grant. Vermont doesn't have any state funds in this. We're managing the grant. New Hampshire has some state match. Maine has some state match. All the other matching funds come directly from the railroad. Our contribution to that grant is we're the oversight to the grant, if that makes sense. But there's no state fund. Yes.
On that, is the local with the private?
The local means that's what the private railroad is investing in towards that grant.
Okay.
Yes, that's what that was. And then the next one was the other Vermont corridor ID program. Same thing as the Ethan Allen. This is just the Vermonter. So again, phase 2, we're in phase 2. We'll get to phase 3 in a couple of years. So anyway, that's a very quick rundown, abbreviated version. I'm really happy to answer anything you guys want about any of these projects.
And Amtrak subsidy payment, that's every year, and
Monthly, we make them monthly.
you make a payment monthly?
Yeah, so what it is Amtrak set, our contract says, how much did it cost to run the Ethan Allen this month? They send us an invoice and we pay what's called actuals. So I'm going to make up something that never happens, but let's just say the train was full in Vermont every single day. We would have more revenue, so our bill would be low. We love the holidays because in Vermont, our train gets packed in the holidays. Great. But, so anyway, my point is actuals versus revenue, it's not a set amount every month, so we get a different bill every month, but we pay it monthly.
So there's a X amount of cost to run the Amtrak.
Mhm.
And then, and here, that's the bill, and then take away all the money that people have paid.
Yeah,
So we pay the difference.
correct.
Just another question is, we're supposedly, I don't want to say we supposedly, I believe we have new cars being manufactured. That's not in here. That must be another grant. And what's the status on that?
Okay, so Vermont won't see those cars for several more years. They're being manufactured. Tentatively, the new cars might show up on the West Coast this calendar year, end of 26, but they haven't given us a delivery date, but we won't see them in Vermont for another couple of years. And the cost was 100% federal grant given to Amtrak to buy that equipment. We won't pay for the equipment itself. What we will pay for is the equipment itself requires a little bit different maintenance. It has, and what I mean by that is their current cars. Okay, I try not to go down in the rabbit hole here, but one example, the restrooms in the new cars take more water than the existing cars. That requires a different maintenance activity at the facility. So when we overnight that train in Burlington, we have to do it. We literally are going to have to get a truck, or we're going to have to get a water source in the yard to water that train. different than we're doing today, that expense will be on us. So when I say equipment's paid, there's sort of a domino to some of that equipment that we're gonna have to pay for.
Thank you.
We just got done a presentation by our CFO that talks about where we filled the $33 million hole for the year. And it says reductions in state match available for projects within the rail division for the FY 26 budget, $2.658 million. So maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but if you could highlight to me what we're not going to get done that we otherwise would have gotten done in the rail division.
One caveat to that is the T fund dropped by 2.6 million, but they added $1 million in tip. So the differential in state funds is 1.5 less this year for the rail program.
Anybody else see where that happened? That was.
I'm not sure that she probably,
From the above part then.
I think it's some of the later.
Okay.
so you're correct, Mr. Chair, that we are down 2.6, or it's almost 2.6, it's 2.5 and change of T fund, but they added 1 million, which I didn't have any tip in 26. They added 1 million in tip, which makes the differential in the match in our state funds only 1.5.
Okay.
Um,
There's not something specific for the 1.5? That's
So-
not gonna happen this year, that'll get rolled, or isn't gonna get done, or what did you do to?
what did I do to balance it? So, I looked at, what's important when I build this budget, I look at what are my top priorities, right? And I just start at the top and I start working my way down. And obviously projects that are already in the queue, we try to keep those moving as much as we can. I would say there's no like silver bullet, like I did this to take the 1.5 out. What I did was kind of slowed down. Maybe instead of bidding a project in January, I might not bid it until July or August. So it's just kind of stretching the when you need the money out a little bit. I don't know that I didn't do anything. There was one program actually what did I put in here? Right here, three-way program. I can tell you one program that didn't get as much funding, which is, it's not a huge deal, but so we do what's called a three-way program where if the railroad comes in and they have a customer and they say, we want to upgrade this siding into our business. It's really an economic development tool, really. We say, all right, state, we'll pay a third of that cost for that siding upgrade. Railroad, you pay a third for that siding upgrade. Business owner, you pay a third of that siding upgrade. And then, it makes it easier for that business to expand. I think I don't have that in front of me, my 26 budget, but I'm going to say it was around $100,000 in there last year-ish. This year, I only have 25,000. So things like that, that was probably one of the ones that the railroad might see as a big thing, because they actually have a couple of customers right now that we're talking to, we'll see what happens with it. Sometimes these projects work and sometimes they don't, but there's one example of something that I'm probably not doing, but as far as projects, for the most part, I tried to stay whole and just delay a little bit.
I was also asking, when you talk a lot about putting your projects out to bid, obviously it's very specialized equipment and dealing with construction on rail. How many vendors are there? I mean, what do you usually really can't be too many companies that are capable of doing this kind of work?
It depends on the project. So if it's just dirt work, that's different. But when you start talking about needing like high rail trucks and cranes and high rail dump trucks, yes, the pool is small. And we generally have a group of contractors that's all they do is railroad stuff. And they'll go Massachusetts, they'll go to Vermont, they'll go to New Hampshire, they'll go to Maine, There's some of those, and then there's a handful that are here in Vermont that, we see over and over again. So,
Yeah, maybe you explained this, but you missed it. So I'm just trying to find out, what did it actually cost? So what's this, there's 9,500, 9,500,000, there's 8 million something. It's- what's the total cost to have the Vermonter and the Incidental?
so we budgeted 9.5 million combined for the two trains.
Okay,
And that's based on, Amtrak sends us an estimate, basically your annual cost for next year. And we divide it by 12 and we put it in here. And then we have to look at, like I said earlier, it's a little confusing this year because that's based on CMAQ funding, which is federal fiscal that I have to ask for. And we have a state fiscal budget here. So that's why because we use CMAQ funding, which is federal, I have to split it out as two different items in my budget.
and then,
But the total is 9.5.
okay, that just I knew that number. So if we were to possibly retrain.
We would need more. We would need more, yeah.
Oh, another.
Well, it depends. It
Oh, although it's, you know,
depends which train, depends how far, do you bring it exactly in the same spot? Like it's really complicated when you start talking about that because there's certain fees that automatically double and there's certain fees that you get. Like a host railroad fee maybe might not be 100%, might be, things like police, because we don't have police on every train anyway. So there's certain things that aren't, you don't buy one apple and all of a sudden you need another apple. You might get some efficiencies where you could take that one apple and split it between the same two trains. So it's not as easy as just doubling it. Sorry.
you're gonna train to Greenfield to Brattleboro. That's a,
Well, and that's a totally, that one, see, the problem with that train is you would have to double it because right now, the Valley,
double the cost, even though it's only like 20 miles.
well, this is the problem. The Valley Flyer right now couldn't necessarily go, well, to keep everything whole right now through Mass and Connecticut, it's maxed out on the number of hours those trains can run and make it back and forth at 4 times.
Yeah.
To go a little further, all of a sudden, you'd need a 26-hour day. So I need a little more time to go any
Go
further.
all the way around the river or something, right?
Well, the problem is you need another train set.
Yeah.
Now you need to make that into another, like instead of 2 trains going back and forth, you need another train and you have to fix the whole schedule to make it work.
It's part of the rail plan.
It's in there to study it, right? It's in there to look at it and it's in there, but
Light is on. I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you very much.
James, for
if you guys have questions, you know how to get a hold of me.